So I think his name is David Watford. I'll have to take a look at their roster, but is it David? Let me just check here.
You're talking about the quarterback, right?
Yeah, he out of the cut of the Philadelphia Eagles, he played the entire first half.
Mm-hmm.
He was, it is David Watford. 8 of 17 for 87 yards. He was picked once. They also had a couple of field goals, but he had mostly starters to go against. So as they say, more daunting challenge in terms of what the other guys saw. But you go so quickly in the CFL. What do we take from that? So we're going to talk to Rod about that in a moment. But here's just a little bit of his work, and I got to be honest, he looked pretty good. Does he land with the team? Because they got obviously Zach Collaros and Brandon Bridge, the Canadian.
Yes,
he's slotted in at number 2 right now. So does this guy stay with the team? Here's some of his work, courtesy of the CFL and broadcasters TSN.
For the former Philadelphia Eagles, swinging it out to Thigpen. Thigpen has room now, sideline, and Marcus Thigpen knocked out of bounds. Second down and 10 from the Edmonton 22. Watford feels the heat and then sips one in. Brett Lothar, the former St. Mary's Husky, puts it through, and Saskatchewan is on the board. In October and in November, he was leading the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Hello.
Hey, Rod, it's Mike Richards from rawmikeRichards.com.
How's she going, brother?
Fantastic. Just so you know, we're live on air. That's how we do it. So if you want to say something bad about your coworkers, just know they're probably going to hear it, or maybe they already know. I mean, 20 years.
I was waiting.
We just played a clip of the preseason game. Take from it what you will. I mean, the coach is trying to see what they're going to see. We just saw some work of David Watford. He did see a lot of the Edmonton starters in that first quarter, and there were times where I thought he looked pretty good, but he hasn't played in a while. This is a guy that was a cut of the Eagles, and I'm just curious, does he have a chance to catch on with the team? What do they make of him?
Oh, yeah. Well, good morning, guys, by the way. Can I start there?
Yeah, you can. We normally say good morning, but we just bypassed that right to the meat.
Mike wanted to get right into it, Rod. He's been CFLing it up for the last 4 weeks in here.
Oh, yeah.
He's been in training camp for the last 2 months.
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, he's 4 months behind Saskatchewan then. But anyways, Watford, does he have a chance? I would almost suggest he's already made the team, because going into that game, he was only supposed to play a quarter. And whether it was Jones or the offensive coordinator, Stephen McAdoo, they made the decision to keep him in for the whole half. They wanted him, Mike, to be successful, right? And those early series, if you watch the game, he had some drops. There were some bad penalties that killed drives. They put David Watford in every situation to be successful. And you mentioned that he was with the Eagles for 2 years. He was a receiver there, but he's a quarterback by trade at Hampton. So he was just excited to be behind center and have the opportunity to play quarterback again. Now, Marquise Williams, who played in the third quarter, who we tabbed as the next one, and we all thought that he would be in Saskatchewan, he gets out there with a second and third group offensive line, gets killed twice on sacks, and gets cut the next day. So he broke all of Darian Durant's records at North Carolina, and he lit up the preseason last year. We're talking about Marquise Williams.
Yep.
So I'm glad that you opened up with the backup quarterbacks. You obviously have a pulse of what's going on here in Saskatchewan, because who's going to be the third-string quarterback is like the number 2 topic of what's going on here right now, only in Saskatchewan.
Right. Well, look, we've been playing a lot of the commentary south of the border surrounding Johnny Manziel. Never, ever did I think I would watch an NFL live show, an ESPN show on the NFL, a Fox show on the NFL, and them talking about the depth chart for the Hamilton Tiger Cats as they're going through camp. Well, I mean, what world am I in? Someone said, "Oh, it makes me sick. This hype it's too much." I'm seriously. I mean, ESPN's going to broadcast 68 games plus the playoffs plus the Grey Cup. I mean, to me, I'm not hating it. I don't think the league's hating it necessarily.
No, not at all. And I hope your listeners aren't tired of Johnny Manziel talk, but I will tell you a little funny story. I was going to climb Camelback Mountain in Scottsdale on New Year's Day, and my driver to the mountain there in Phoenix said, we are talking, he found out that I work in the CFL. He goes, the CFL? Johnny Manziel's going up there. Hamilton's got his rights. And I said, yep. And he goes, this is his last chance. This is it. This is it. If he screws this up, he's done. And I said, yeah, well, people like me and Johnny get a lot of last chances, you know? And so if you know what I mean, and I don't want to talk about Johnny, but he and I have had similar issues in our lives. We do get a lot of last chances, but people root for your comeback. Mm-hmm. I'm rooting for Johnny's comeback. America, he's one of those polarizing guys. You love him or you hate him, but they're all going to be watching, and that's the best news for our league.
Yeah, it certainly is, Rod. Rod, so great to talk to you this morning. Thanks for doing this in conversation with Rod Pedersen, the voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, entering year number 20. That's crazy for me to even comprehend that, being a Prairie boy myself and obviously a Bomber guy, but the Roughriders have always been that number one rival, especially where the two cities are geographically located. You've been at this for 20 years. Does it seem like 20 years, Rod?
No, not at all. And to be honest, I was a hockey guy getting into the league, so the first few years were a blur. But what I love, David, is that I've had a front row seat for all the ups and downs again and ups of this storied franchise. I've been there, never missed a snap for the last 20 years. That's a very fortunate position for me to be in with a tremendous football team. It's really gone by in a blink.
Well, I got to be like this week, as I said, as I've been ramping up to the CFL, I played a bunch of like clips that guys have made from their own cameras, like the footage of Mosaic, and it really, and I said, in my world, I'd fantasize as a kid what certain stadiums would look like in the CFL. That was kind of one of those images, but you never really think that it's going to be that kind of reality. As you get older, you start to understand cost, you start to understand demand, popularity, and then there it is, sitting there. The return game on Labor Day, and I have to think that it's a shrine. And you know what? For a football crowd or an audience that have treated that football team like a religion for all those years, it seems to me like almost a reward for those people that would come from all the different parts of the province and other provinces to watch games.
Well, Mike, you've spent enough time on the prairies yourself, and you have a ton of fans in that southwestern, western Saskatchewan area because they listen to you all the time, right? You know what our fans are about. So last year in the new stadium, like they're saying, "Oh, we don't deserve this. We're not worthy of this." And you sit in that stadium and you don't think you're in Regina, and that's not a shot at my beloved hometown. You just can't believe where you are, and it's got a lot of the feels, as they say in the stadium business, of MetLife Stadium in New York or AT&T Stadium in Dallas. That's the kind of facility we have. And the hilarious thing is Calgary, your old home, they're just dying with McMahon Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
And my friends that work with the Stampeders, I do actually have some friends with the Stampeders, and they say, how did you get this thing built for 10 days a year? That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it's used, really. And I said, because it's Canada's team, baby. And when the government, and then it went, if it had to have gone to a plebiscite, they would have voted in favor of it. They didn't have to, because the whole province was in favor of building this Taj Mahal. The new commissioner, Randy Ambrosi, calls it a cathedral, whatever you want to call it. It's every day when we walk into it, you can't believe you've got it and it's ours.
Let's go back to the quarterback situation and let's talk starter, because there's a lot of different websites, including the CFL.ca, that are already talking about, early season awards and maybe predictions on comeback player of the year. And the name Zach Collaros comes up, considering what he looked like in Toronto, what he looked like that first year in Hamilton, and last year obviously injured and never got, enough playing time and so forth. What has his camp looked like through the first couple of weeks, and what are expectations on a guy that, the Rough Riders are paying some pretty good cash to be that number one and to take them to where they were not too long ago?
Well, he's gotten better every day, which is his goal. We're into week 2 of training camp now, and he had a really sharp day yesterday. Chris Jones was very happy with the overall play of the team. It took Zach a while to settle in a little bit. New team, new playbook. He was never bad, but he had the odd bad throw last week. He's dialing it up now, dialing it in. He doesn't miss screens and bubbles. He makes those easy passes easy, and he's accurate downfield. The thing that I love about him is he's very, very mature, and he's incredibly focused. You can tell he's simmering underneath with some sort of chip on his shoulder, whether it's what went down in Hamilton, whether it's he's been rated anywhere between 7th and 9th best starting quarterbacks in the CFL, whatever it is, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He wants to go out and prove it, and that's probably why he's leading these polls to be the comeback player of the year. He's got some emotional and physical baggage to deal with, and the only way to do it is by getting on the field and winning. So when you got a veteran team that's expected to contend, training camp is even more arduous because it's like, we know who's going to be playing where. Let's just get to the regular season and get this thing going.
Well, Rod, talk a little bit about that baggage. Like, I mean, I know a lot about Zach only because I watched him play in college when he was in Cincinnati. Brian Kelly was the coach with the Bearcats at that point, and Tony Pike was kind of the starter. And Zach kind of fought his way through that, and that, of course, in the NCAA, that's where Brian gets a chance to go to Notre Dame. So you know how it works in college. Before your biggest game, before the bowl game, you probably went to those kids' houses to recruit them. Before your biggest game of the year, the coach leaves. Like, it's a difficult situation. So I think that Zach has been used to kind of maybe a little disappointment in his own life, and of course he had to be just devastated what happened in Hamilton necessarily. But is that the emotional baggage you're talking about being the guy and all of a sudden you're not the guy?
Well, the fans here just wonder how at 29 some people thought he was washed up in Hamilton, and he was benched after an 0-8 start last year. People are just wondering why. Why did this happen? Why did he fall out of favor in Hamilton? And I've talked to the Ticats people, and the relationship between Ken Austin and Zach pretty much became untenable. And isn't it ironic that here we are in 2018, and they're both gone from Hamilton?
Yeah.
So I think there was some hard feelings towards Hamilton. He won't admit to that, but you can just, when you're standing beside him and looking in his eyes, those will be some special games against the Ticats this year. That's a little bit of baggage. That's the emotional side of it. And the physical side of it is he was having an MVP season in 2015. He was on pace to be the MVP of the league and lead the team back to the Grey Cup for a second consecutive year when he tears his knee up on a seemingly harmless play. And it took, I think, a long time for him to get over that physically. And now he doesn't like to even talk about it. And at our Florida minicamp, I asked him, and that will be the last time I will ask him about his knee because he doesn't want to talk about it at all. And he's kind of easy to read what his emotions are. He doesn't want to look behind, guys. He wants to look ahead. And that's nothing but good news for the Rough Riders. And the only other thing is people here can't get over how young he looks because it seems like Zach Collaros has been around forever. He's only 29 years of age. His best football, Chris Jones feels, is ahead of him.
Yeah, very well could be. That back, I guess I'm not going to say running back by committee, but it looks like Jerome Messon is going to be the guy. But you have a couple interesting stories in Trey Mason and Zach Stacy, two NFLers, two Rams. One was retired, comes back. What does that look like, and how is that going to shape up? Considering that you like the idea of having the national player in there, are they going to keep both international players, both former NFLers, or how is that backfield going to shape up when everything's said and done in the next couple weeks?
I'm very impressed with the prep you've done on our roster going into this interview. That's the first thing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Two, I was up in beautiful Prince Albert, Saskatchewan yesterday speaking at a Special Olympics breakfast, and the first question that came out of the crowd in the Q&A was, who's going to be our running back? And I said, I don't know, but let me ask, and I'll get back to you. So I come down here to Saskatoon to training camp. I said to the running backs coach, okay, I got this question from PA. Who's our running back going to be? And he goes, damn, I wish I knew. But that's what training camp's for, right? So if Marcus Thigpen, who did electric things in the National Football League and the CFL before that, if he wasn't facing a 2-game suspension to open this season, I could tell you confidently right now it would be Marcus Thigpen. And once he's served that suspension, it will be Marcus Thigpen. He's been the best training camp running back here by a country mile. Jerome Messam is just wonderful insurance, 6-figure contract, mind you.
Yes.
He can start, 1,000-yard rusher just last year in Calgary. Jerome gives this team a lot of options, not the least of which is being a ratio buster. He looks fine. He hasn't gone full speed in training camp yet. He's 33. He's somewhat saving himself, which is understandable. I don't know how Chris Jones feels about that, but that's what Mess is doing. And then those two Rams, like when I got back here to camp yesterday, I walked up to the field, and all of a sudden, Trey Mason stood out like nobody I've ever seen, I don't think. Like I was like, whoa, who's this guy? He just had something about him. The long dreads, explosive. They go through these guys a dime a dozen, and just because I saw him one day at training camp doesn't mean he's the next George Reed. But these guys know how to find talent. Let's put it that way. So between Stacy and Mason, that's probably a depth guy right there. And I'm impressed with the humbleness, the humility of guys like that are willing to come to the CFL and potentially even stay on the practice roster for a year just to play ball and follow their dream. Because it's Thigpen and Messam, two vets, two big names in this league that are on top of the depth chart, but those guys are here competing. That impresses me a lot.
Well, and finally, just on the defense side of the ball, I mean, that's what Chris Jones, that's what his resume is. I think when you're born in Tennessee, I think English isn't your first language. I think you talk about blitzes and dogs and cover two. I think that's just how they grow up in that part of the world. Are we going to see a lot of, because it's a lot of high-risk stuff, high-risk, high-reward, a lot of exotic-looking blitzes. Is it going to be that kind of, are those sort of packages that we're going to see from the D in Saskatchewan?
That's what we're seeing in training camp, and that's what I love about Chris Jones. One of the things I love about Chris Jones was the living on the edge, the Don Matthews-style defense, but we haven't seen that the last 2 years in Saskatchewan. And I've said to him, Chris, where's this D that we saw in Edmonton that gave the Riders fits for those 2 years? He's like, I don't have the vets yet. I don't have the guys that I want to run that. That was the last 2 years. This year he does. So they're blitzing from everywhere. They're in the quarterback's face here at training camp. And what the beautiful thing about that is, Mike, is forcing those quarterbacks into quick decisions here and play at their optimum in training camp. Once you get into the games, they should be easy. Like if you can handle this in practice against your own defense, which could be the best defense in the CFL, it helps both sides of the football. And as far as personnel, let me just throw some names at you. Willie Jefferson, Charleston Hughes, Zach Evans, Ed Gainey. These are CFL perennial all-stars on that side of the football. They're long, lean, they're hungry, they're mean, and they want the province loves them so much. I was just with all those guys at the Saskatchewan Rush game the other night, National Lacrosse League. Mm-hmm. They were held up as absolute heroes. What does that do to the players? They want to return the favor to the fans. So it's been some rough years the last couple of years here, but it's coming together, and I think this is just going to be an unreal season for the Saskatchewan Roughriders and this province, which frankly has had a tough 2018.
Yeah.
So they're going to be relying on the Riders to lift some spirits around here.
Absolutely, Rod. Final question from me. I know it's not fair to ask you this right now because it's May the 31st, but we're friends, so I can ask you. Give me the five in order, the top 5 teams in the West Division. We know that 4 of them are going to make the postseason because there will be a crossover, whether the East likes it or not. But give me your top 5 in order of how the division will fare when everything's said and done in late October.
That's not tough at all. I've actually already done it a month ago.
Oh,
okay.
I've got Saskatchewan 1,
yep.
Shocking.
Of course. Sure.
Edmonton 2, Calgary 3, BC 4.
Whoa! And, no, Rod, come on.
And the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 5th.
Really?
Is that why you just exploded? Because I don't know why they bring me on the radio in Winnipeg to give these predictions every year. I always do. They posted them, I'm told, in their locker room. I'm like, if you guys are worried with the radio guy in Saskatchewan saying, you're proving why you're going to be 5th. So there you go.
Oh, that is awesome. Hey, Rod, so great to catch up with you. I've been saying, not just because of Johnny Manziel, but I just think everyone's going to play more consistent ball this year. I think there is some of those years where it seems like it's in flux. I think this is one where a lot of the teams, they got their feet on the ground. I think you can see better football. I think Hamilton's a huge question mark. I mean, you got Jerry Glanville running that offense who doesn't
Defense, yep.
or a defense who doesn't know what a zone is. I mean, it's man, and they're going to bring the house a lot. Toronto is the ultimate in the Rodney Dangerfield disrespected. I mean, Grey Cup champions. Nobody talks about them. But they're going to play some solid ball. I think Ottawa's going to be a lot. I don't know about Montreal. Montreal to me is
worst
probably
team in the league.
Is going to be and for the years that they put beatings on people, I'm not crying. But as a CFL fan, you're always kind of worried financially. It's funny talking to Steve Milton from the Spec. As I was sort of rubbing the Alouettes' noses into the ground, he said, "Yeah, but like a CFL fan, you kind of got to be careful with that because you can't have them sink too low because financially, it's never great when there's an anvil or an anchor pulling everything else down."
It's the CFL. There's always going to be one. And let's not forget the NHL has those franchises too. It's not just a CFL thing. But I'm with you. I don't expect much out of Montreal. I hope for the best. Thank God they have a rich owner who seems to be able to withstand these losses, but they're not getting better. They're getting worse.
Yeah.
Hey, thankfully, look where you're sitting right now. At least it's not the Argos anymore that are the problem child.
Right.
That situation's been fixed, or it's being fixed. So, hey, life isn't perfect, but we're getting there. And these are great times in the CFL.
I agree 100%. Rod, you take care. I'm sure we'll talk to catch up with you again soon this summer. Hope to see you, maybe get out there. But it's just been fabulous having you on the show today. I really appreciate it.
We'd love to host you. Thanks for calling, boys.
Thanks, Rod.
Rod Pedersen joining us here today. It's always great to catch up with him. He's a really solid guy.
I agree with everything he said until the predictions.
Yeah, I saw your face. Once again, Dave's aware there's cameras. And it's like, what?
What? We just become best friends? Yep.